All right, welcome everybody to another real-time session. This time we're going to be speaking with Brad Green and Lucy Santos Green. I'll introduce them in a moment. Just to let you know, we have a few other interesting sessions coming up. We hope you will join or watch the archives. Coming up on Thursday, Jörn de Boer will come to talk about privacy checklists and social media. Just an amazing, innovative librarian from the Netherlands. On Thursday, the week from Thursday, we have scheduled Marie Oostergaard from the director of, I think, one of the most innovative and best public libraries in the world. The Aarhus Public Library will be joining us, and we'll be talking a lot about innovation, but also about reopening and positioning ourselves moving forward. And the announcement will go out soon, but on Tuesday, a week from today, Sari Feldman and her former team from the Cayuga Public Library will be joining us to talk about strategic planning and moving forward. So that I'll send out momentarily. But today, I am thrilled. One, it's already been pointed out, our first couple interview, so this is fantastic. And on a really fabulous topic. One of the things that we wanted to do when we started these real-time sessions was to bring a real diversity of views and areas for professional development moving forward for what libraries can look like after we open up again. And I think that today is a wonderful thing because at one point it's very unique, but on the other point is very universal. I mean, it's unique to think about literacy through music, but on the other hand, music is universal in its appreciation. So I think I'm really looking forward to learning. So I don't screw it up. I've known Lucy now for several years. She was, by the way, I am treasured to remember, my first official hire as a director. And a fantastic way to start that process. But I want to get it right here. So I'll start. Dr. Brad Green is a high school choral director and well-known choral composer. He has been in K-12 and higher education music classrooms, studios, and performance spaces for over 20 years. His compositions are frequently performed at concert halls, choral festivals, and music conferences all over the world. He has a bachelor's and master's in music theory and composition and a PhD in music education from Texas Tech University. His book of original classroom and procedure songs, School Rules, is a popular resource in both music and general elementary classrooms. This summer, he is joining us as a new graduate student in the Masters of Library and Information Science program, so we're very, very fortunate to have him here. Dr. Green, Dr. Lucy Santos Green, the doctor's green, this is great, has over 20 years of experience as a music teacher, piano and voice instructor, and choir director. As a member of the professional vocal group, I'm going to mess this up, Cecilia Ensemble?
That's correct.
Oh my, all right.
Yes.
She has performed at national music festivals and was in residence at the Tchaikovsky Conservatory in Moscow in Russia. Along with her husband, Dr. Brad Green, has co-written various well-known choral works and arrangements available through Hall Leonard Publishing and Alfred Music, and she also is a key member of our school library faculty. So, welcome both of you. Thank you so much for coming. As I say, I'm a great lover of music and a great inept person in providing music, which I assume you're going to address this. And so I'm going to do what I do best in these, which is to sit back and shut up. And I'm going to turn it over to you guys to tell us a little bit about music for children in our library.
Yeah, thanks for having us. So when we were putting this presentation together, what we really wanted to talk to folks about is how music is really a universal component in so much of the programming that we do in libraries, whether it be elementary school libraries for students ages 4 all the way through 12 years of age, in public libraries during storytelling and other family activities. It's really like an essential part of what we do when we spend time with children. But we do want to give a few little caveats before we present today. First, we have dogs and they're loud. So if you hear growling or barking or wrestling or glass breaking in the background and you notice that we don't react, it's because it's like the story of our life as dog owners. Okay, so anyway, back to the presentation. So we just wanted to share this with you all because we believe that it's a really important part, but we also think it's a part that can intimidate people. Sometimes people think, well, I have to have a beautiful voice, or I have to be able to play the guitar, or I have to know all of these things before I can actually use music, and they just stick to a recording. So we just want this to be an encouragement to people that music really is accessible and universal, and can be included by you. And then the last thing I want to say is that when we talk about using high quality music and we talk about using folk songs, most countries in the world have a history of folk music that is of their culture. And so think when you hear us give examples and talk about American folk songs, we want to encourage you to also explore and think about the folk songs that are popular in your culture and represent your country as well. So anyway, here we go. Sure. We do have our contact information available. So again, I'm Dr. Lucy Santos Green. I'm Associate Professor of LIS here at the University of South Carolina. And so here, the contact information is at the bottom for me. We're both on Twitter. And then
today we're going to cover a few topics that we think are important for children's librarians and elementary school librarians.
Not yet. We'll go. Yeah, we'll skip there.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll come back.
For elementary children's librarians and elementary school librarians who would like to integrate music in their library programming. We'll start with the relationship between music and literacy. We'll discuss what age-appropriate materials look like. We'll move to vocal tips and help for children. And then Lucy will talk about 7 ways to teach a song. And then we'll discuss some important resources, and we're happy to share questions and discussion points regarding resources.
Okay. Before we get started, we do want to put in a quick little plug. We just started this project. We've actually been talking about it for quite a while. This is our channel on YouTube. It's the Music for Children at the Greenhouse. And every week, about week and a half, 7 to 10 days, we will post a new video. They're very short, between 3 to 5 minutes. And what we'll do is we'll be introducing a song and modeling how to use that song in the library. We play through the games. We act just like we're in front of a group of kids. And so if you have kids, you want to have them watch along with you. I think they'll really enjoy it. We'll be having some guests join us soon. And they'll be demonstrating ways that you can tie in music with story time and then other activities. So we're really excited about that. And you can just look us up at tinyurl.com/greenhouse music. All right. So I'll kick us off. I just want to touch upon the strong connections between early music learning and literacy development. I think anecdotally we know this relationship exists, but we wanted to make sure that we really emphasized why it's important for both of these skill sets to develop alongside each other. So first, in considering the stages of learning to read, the learning the correspondence between the visual parts of words, the graphemes, it's always a weird little word, and their spoken sounds, the phonemes, and then being able to visually recognize words without going through the earlier stage of sounding everything out every single time, what we call whole word reading. We recognize that stage is really critical to fluency. And that's when early music development occurs, it strengthens a child's ability to also be able to whole word read and then recognize differentiation of sounds as they're reading. The point there, as we listen to music, the features of music parallel many highly complex brain functions that are necessary for memory, word sequence, and visualization. Music often has a rhythmic or rhyming quality, making it easier to remember. It is, of course, sequenced, which encourages us to try to recall songs we like, thus engaging memory. And it can also become a soundtrack for what we see or visualize. So as a result, we can say that music enhances the ability to create, maintain, transform, and reflect complex mental representations of learning. So that's really huge, especially when we want kids to investigate more complex concepts. All right, so to the third point, we know from research going back a good 30 years that there is a relationship between reading ability and sound discrimination. One interesting study I wanted to highlight, first graders were given opportunities to listen to pairs of musical notes and chords in sequence, and were then asked to determine if these were the same or different. Students were then asked to speak words and determine if the words began or ended the same sounds. The first graders were then tested on the ability to sound out nonsense syllables presented visually. And a strong relationship was found between how well children could read both standard and phonic material and how well they could determine pitch. So the stronger their musical ability, the stronger their phonetic ability. All right, so to the fourth point, in an experimental long-term study of 78 eight-year-old boys and girls, researchers found that students who received musical skill instruction scored significantly higher on a reading test than students who received instruction in discussion, narrative, and storytelling skills for the same length of time. In another study by neuroscientists at the University of California, San Francisco, and Rutgers University, it was found that altered auditory input can, in fact, improve reading skills. So over and over again, we're seeing this relationship. And then one interesting thing that we sometimes don't consider is the impact of poor listening skills on a student's learning ability in school. So one thing that we now know, again, based on a really long list of research studies, is that rhythmic intervention can help students regulate their own behavior. It can actually help them develop their ability to listen. Really interesting. Children exposed to low volume rhythmic drum beats for an hour per day over many weeks, and these were children who were on the autism spectrum, experienced improvement in areas typically associated with poor listening skills like short attention span, poor impulse control, poor organization, misinterpretation of sounds, poor reading, and vocabulary development. So the really, really strong relationship between that exposure to rhythmic patterns and consistent rhythms, and then the ability for a child to then self-regulate and work on their ability to listen and calm down and focus on what's being presented. So what to do about that? I just want to show this chart to y'all here, kick off this chart a little bit. At the top, across the top, are ways that you would potentially introduce these concepts through a musical activity. And at the bottom, across the same way, is like an equitable example of how this could be presented as a literacy reading rich activity. So imitation. You might do an activity with children where you put together an 8-beat pattern of some kind. You can do it with your hands. And ask children to echo you as you change the pattern up. So very quickly, we can show this example. And then I might do you can ask children to do this with body percussion, or you can use non-pitched instruments like wooden blocks or rhythm sticks. So if we were looking at this from a more reading, like a stronger reading perspective, you might have children echo read aloud sections of a book. You might have them mimic character sayings and sounds. So if a character repeats a certain saying throughout the book, every time that phrase comes up, you would then point to the children and have them repeat the phrase back instead of you reading it out loud. Under the exploration column, we can say, well, we're singing a familiar song, but then you change an element, and you change one element at a time. So maybe you change the dynamics, or you change the tempo. The first time you sing it slowly. The second time you sing it a little bit faster. You might change the mode. So if it's a happy sounding song, you might sing it in a sadder way. So if it's in a major mode, you might sing it in a minor mode, or you might even change the measure, and that gets a little bit more challenging. So as an example, if you're singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, you might sing it a little softer with the children, and then you might sing it louder. You might sing it slower and then sing it faster, and have the kids give you ideas of how to change it. And then an example of changing the mode is if you sing it, as a major tune, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, you might change it to a minor mode. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. So those are ways to explore musical concepts with children. You can do the same thing pairing with a literacy activity. You can have children change a story setting. Oh, what if the story happened in a city instead of on a farm? What if it happened in this country instead of this country? You can have children explore changing the ending. Another more inclusive change that you could make is you could change a character's pronouns. Sometimes when books feature characters like firefighters or medical professionals, they'll use gendered pronouns and more traditional separations of those jobs. You can change the character's pronoun, you can change the character's name and be a little bit more inclusive. So under reading and writing, this is a really fun activity. I think kids really especially enjoy this, is having them come up with music based on artwork. So putting shapes together and having kids assign certain sounds to different shapes, and then having them put those in different orders to compose, to write a musical piece. This can be a really fun broad way to just have children compose without worrying about notation and other more complex musical things. You can also have them create listening maps. So if they're listening to a simple piece of music, they then can draw a map for someone to follow that music along. So that's a way to incorporate reading and writing with a musical activity. Same thing if you flip that activity over. If you're reading a story, you can have create and assign a musical motif to each character. So every time this character shows up in the story, we'll hear this little tune, or we'll hear this, these three notes, or this sound. So that's a way that you could have them kind of create a musical composition for a story that you're writing. And then finally, an improvisation column. There you can create short musical ideas to introduce or close a story. So, we know this, when children watch cartoons or TV shows, there's always the little theme that introduces the program. So consider think about what would be the theme, what would a tune sound like that might introduce our story. Let's work together and improvise that. They can also come up with sound effects for what's happening in the story. If you have, again, non-pitched instruments like wooden blocks, shakers, triangles, even pitched instruments like xylophones, it's so fun to have kids come up with sound effects and little tunes and things that would introduce or close the story or shift the mood of a story. And then on the literacy, flipping that activity again, you can chant a short poem rhythmically over and over to help them get that sense of meter, get that sense of the structure of the poem, and then have them add percussion and movement to that poem. So that's just a way that you can see there's a clear connection between those activities when they're musical and then when they're tied to literacy.
Okay, when selecting age-appropriate materials, it's some things that you want to consider are that the songs that you pick should be within the musical capabilities of the group. Here are a few guidelines you can use to make this determination. Children, especially below 7 years of age, have a very limited singing range and light voices, and it can be very intimidating to ask them to join in with a musical activity. Anybody, but especially little children. An example of their range is the song Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. So that range, from the lowest to the highest note, is about as far as a voice
7 or younger.
7 or younger. That's the range. That's about their range. Children 8 to 11, their range will expand just a bit. An example of their range is the song Happy Birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
So you can hear that. happy birthday, happy birthday. It expands the range just a little bit. That's an older child, 3rd to 5th grade, their singing range. Select any tune with notes that go above or below that will be outside their range. Select songs that are appealing to the group. The same care that you would use to select a story or reading, you should use like the songs. Children's hearts beat at a faster rate. Whatever song you select, make sure you perform it at a tempo that's a livelier pace. Do not fall back on your own personal preference. At the end of this presentation, we'll also be sharing resources where you can find great songs for children. While it's all right to sing...
Well, did we skip? We did skip one.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, well.
We'll get back
okay.
to it.
So choose songs that can be integrated into the themes, the subjects, or stories that you're presenting, or can be easily integrated in several ideas.
Yeah.
While it's all right to sing the same welcome or goodbye song every week, don't just stick to a list of favorite songs and use those over and over again. Make sure that your song selections are related to, expand upon, and support the ideas, subjects, and themes that you are introducing during story time or literacy activities and lessons. Choose songs, the next point, choose songs that give children the opportunity to do more than just listen or sing along. In other words, pick musically interesting songs. When you pick a song, consider that kids can do other things besides listen and sing. They can play non-pitched instruments, like wooden blocks, drums, shakers, like Lucy already mentioned. They can use just anything you can beat or anything you can shake.
Yeah, even each other.
They can evaluate, describe what they're hearing. They can even use their imagination to compose with music or text, new words, a rhythmic pattern. There's really no limit when it comes to what children can improvise. What I want to caution when choosing age-appropriate materials is against material like, for example, Kids Bop or Camp Rock, the latest children's movie they see, Nickelodeon theme songs, top 40 radio tunes. These are highly stylized and they're not appropriate for group singing at all, and are not the best choices.
Mm-hmm.
So
I get to sing some of these examples for y'all now.
So I would strongly encourage, when making selections of song literature, to look for folk songs, look for singing games, make sure that the song has high quality text. You want to be culturally diverse. Don't be afraid to go outside the normal culture
Typical,
that is represented within your group, and make sure that you feel the value, you feel the purpose in the music that you choose. And so be aware of the function of the music, the functions that can come from the music that you choose. And this is a highly valuable historical an anthropologist put this together several decades ago. These are the functions of music in all societies across the world. Mm-hmm. So
we wanted to give examples, right, of each one of these.
Yes. Yeah. And when you're choosing music, you can think of these functions. So one is the emotional expression component of music. An example is,
if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
Another function of music is to communicate.
So this is a song that Brad actually wrote, and it's a hello, a greeting song. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
How are you?
It's so good.
It's so good
to see you.
to see you.
I'm glad we're here today.
I'm glad we're here today.
Let's have some fun, okay?
Let's have some fun, okay?
We'll sing and dance and play.
We'll sing and play.
And then go on our way.
And then go on our way. Okay. Music is used to represent symbols.
And concepts, like more complicated ideas. So for this example, we picked "This Land Is Your Land." So here in the United States, states are very spread very far apart from each other and very diverse. But the song "This Land Is Your Land" is a symbolic representation of how we're all these diverse groups of states, but we're still one country. So you might have children sing a song like that. And it's, "This land is your land, this land is my land." And I won't sing the whole thing, but it's really famous. So you can check it out sometime.
So we use music as to get people to conform to social norms. And so an example of this would be very simply,
songs that teach kids good or preferred behaviors. So songs like "The more we get together, the more we get together, the happier we'll be. When your friends are my friends and my friends are your friends, when all we get together, the happier we'll be."
We also use music to validate social institutions.
This is any religious or holiday song, but also things that people don't necessarily think about. So like high school or college alma mater songs or sport team fight songs. And I'm not singing any of those because I am not a sportsy sports. Who sports?
Okay, we use music as continuity and for the stability of culture.
So take me out to the ball game, take me out to the crowd, buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if we ever come back, 'cause it's root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame.
For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
And then probably a more global version of that example would be the song "Happy Birthday."
Okay, we use music for the integration of society, and this can be a small social context like the group of children that we're singing to.
All right, so if you want to bring in kids together, usually an example of this would be circle game songs like "Skip, skip, skip to my loo, skip, skip, skip to my loo, skip, skip, skip to my loo, my darling." And this is when you're inviting kids to come together and get in a circle and then hold hands and move together.
We use music for aesthetic enjoyment, just for the simple pleasure and experience of listening.
And a great example of this are lullabies. So, the lullabies say goodnight. Da, 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 da.
Letting children experience the pure power of music. We use music, of course, for entertainment.
Yeah, so these songs in this category are things like ballads, songs that are stories, music that will let you imagine what's happening to a character. And one of our son's favorite examples of this when he was little is the song "Who Killed Cocky Robin?" And it's got many different verses that goes through all the, who might be guilty of killing Cocky Robin. And the first verse is, "Who killed Cocky Robin? Who killed Cocky Robin? I," said the sparrow, "with my little bow and arrow. It was I, oh, it was I.
And of course, physical response. Music often elicits a physical response, and it's powerful that way.
If you don't believe that, just think about disco. But our example here would be a song like, Father Abraham had many sons had Father Abraham. I am one of them, and so are you. So let's just, I don't ever remember that sentence, but you would add the
motions.
Yeah, you would add the motions. One arm, two arms, one leg, two legs, and so on. I always forget the last sentence of that song. All right. So we did want to briefly touch on a couple of things to remember when you are singing with kids. And these are probably challenges that we sometimes see, things that we want you to think about. So here are our vocal tips for singing with kids. Encourage children to sing with a light and natural voice, not forced at all. This is called a head voice. And if you want to get a sense of what that feels like in your own body, practice making an owl or a ghost sound like this. Ooh, ooh. So just kind of think about where that sound would be. And while you're sharing the second point, I'm going to look this up on the app so they can get a sense of this
range
difference.
Is really important. Like I said before, the average adult typically speaks at a lower pitch than a child. So when we sing, we typically sing at a lower range. Adult treble voices typically sit around an A. Would you put that again?
Yeah, around here.
But children's voices typically sit more comfortably around a D.
Right around here.
An easy way to find this difference is when you're singing with children is to sing happy birthday, where it's comfortable for your voice. Happy birthday to you. And where it starts for your voice is not where it would probably start for a child's voice. So when you get to the word to, happy birthday to,
happy birthday to,
that would be more of a child's range.
Encourage children to sing in tune. But again, we have a little caveat about this. So just remember that there's a strong correlation. We mentioned this earlier in the presentation. There's a strong correlation between being able to accurately match pitch and determine pitch and rhythmic changes and the development of reading skills. So even though you're not a music teacher, accurate singing is important for librarians to foster because, again, it really helps children to develop that phonetic and oral ability that they need for reading and sounding out words. However, what we will say is this. Be very, very careful not to ever call attention to an individual child singing. Don't say, oh, Johnny, that sounds terrible, or, oh, Maddie, you're singing too low. Try to really just work as a group on that because usually children up to the age of 6 are going to struggle to match pitch consistently.
Always avoid saying things like, sing louder, or I can't hear you, since it'll encourage the children to leave the kind of head natural singing voice and head voice space that we were talking about.
Don't ask children to match your pitch, okay, especially if you have a changed voice. Okay, so Brad has a changed voice. He's a baritone. So instead of having children match your pitch, if you start singing a song and you notice that they're singing higher, they're struggling to sing where you are, adjust your voice, your pitch to meet the children where they are and match their pitch. Don't ever ask them to match yours.
Finally, and perhaps most importantly, it's not about you. It's not your concert. Don't sing over the kids. They don't care if you're a bad singer. They care about your enthusiasm and your passion. If you're comfortable in the song, they will be comfortable in the song. So
we wanted to go over 7 ways that you can teach a song. You have choices voices. And I don't know that people sometimes realize that there are different ways you can introduce a song. And some of these ways really give you fantastic opportunities for bringing in puppets and manipulative picture books and those non-pitched instruments like we were talking about, physical movement, activities, artwork. So a huge range. The first example is one of my favorites, and we just did it on our YouTube channel when we introduced the song Mr. Rabbit. Begin by telling a story that introduces and teaches the text of the song. So I'm just going to very briefly give you an example about the song Mr. Rabbit. You might say something like, "Hey kids, guess what happened to me the other day?"
What?
"I was walking through the park, minding my own business. I looked to the right, and guess what I saw?"
What did you see?
"I saw a rabbit. I saw a rabbit.
That's cool.
He had a gray coat on, and he had very long ears. And I noticed that he was just standing there staring at me. So I walked close to the rabbit, and I thought for sure he was going to hop away, but guess what?
What?
He didn't. He just stood there and let me come close to him. So I got really close. I looked at him, and I asked him, Mr. Rabbit, your ears are mighty long." And guess what he said?
What?
"Yes, my lord, they're put on wrong." And then you keep singing the song and invite the children to join you. That's a way of using a story. You can use a game. So you can teach a song that is associated with a actual physical game. A real popular one here in the United States is Old Brass Wagon. Circle to the left, the old brass wagon. Circle to the left, the old brass wagon. Circle to the left, the old brass wagon. You're the one, my darling. And as you're doing this, children are holding hands in a circle, and they're going to the left. So a great advantage about teaching a song through a game is that you're not formally teaching the song, really. You just simply start playing the game. And as you go through and repeat the game over and over, and the kids are more and more physically interactive, you'll notice that they will join in singing. And they'll just start echoing, and they will learn it so quickly and as they're physically interacting with the game. So if it's an associated game song, just start playing the game. They will come in. The other way you can teach is phrase by phrase. And there are actually two ways of doing this. You can do phrase by phrase in sequence, where you sing one phrase and you ask the children to echo you. You go through each line this way, right? So if I'm doing this with a child, I might say, "Oh, give me a home.
Oh, give me a home
Where the buffalo roam."
where the buffalo roam.
And he refuses to sing the rest of the song because he's Arkansas boy, not Texas. But anyway, you would sing it phrase by phrase. But you can also teach a song phrase by phrase out of sequence. So if you're introducing a short song, you can sing the entire song. Then ask the children if they remember any of the phrases that you sang. Is there a part of the song that you remember? And ask them to sing that back to you. Then you say, "Okay, now I'm going to sing it again. When I get to that part, I want you to sing it for me." And you go through this process until they're able to learn the entire song. And that's a great way to teach it out of sequence. Call and response. This is great for songs that have repeated phrases. One of our favorites is a song that is very popular for Halloween. It's called "There Was an Old Woman." And it has a little response, a ooh part at the end. So you say, can you use the song?
There was an old woman, all skin and bones. Ooh. One night she thought she'd take a walk.
Ooh. So as you go through the song, you have children start to sing along with the repeated phrase. You make them responsible for the repeated phrase, and then they start becoming more and more involved. One of the more well-known ways to teach a song are through dramatization. These are very popular, especially with really young kids. Excuse me. So really popular examples, Itsy Bitsy Spider, when we do the Itsy Bitsy Spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Sorry. And then I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here is my handle, here is my spout. Those are examples of having the children physically immediately join in with acting out the song, acting out the lyrics. Movement, we talked about this a little earlier. Songs that have children perform simple dances or choreography like waving hands or tapping feet. A really popular one is This Little Light, I'm gonna let it shine, and having them join with little movements where they cover the light, they blow it out, those kinds of things. And then the last way is by asking questions. You can ask kids to identify similar parts of a song, how many phrases a song has, or you can hum a tune of a song that you've shared with them before, and then ask them, hey, do you remember the words to that part? Or do you remember what song that is? You can do a musical example when you do that, or you can do extra musical where you sing a portion of the song and then you ask them questions about what happened to help them remember the lyrics. So can you give an example of that? You were sharing with me yesterday. I thought it was a good example. I don't know if you remember. Where you sing the song and you ask them a question about what happens next.
I can't remember the specific example, but like the Incy Spider.
Yeah.
And I would say, for example, what happened after the sun came out?
Yeah.
And then let the kids find the answer, and that helps them recall the lyrics to the song.
All right. So after we've thrown all this information at you, you may be asking yourself, where on earth am I going to find all of these resources, all these different kinds of songs?
One of my favorite sources is Beth's Music Notes. That's a website by a music teacher, and she's been working on this website for a very long time. She has high quality songs, many. They're organized by theme, category, subject. There are additional resources. A few of them that you'll find are lesson plans, games, grade levels, instruments, visuals, articles. She has lots of different resources, and it's a really amazing resource.
She has resources, and then she also has a paid version as well. But even the free part of the website is extremely powerful and chock full of information.
Yes. A good source for quality and authentic literature is Smithsonian Folkways Children's Music. This is a strong resource for finding lots of authentic American
and
folk
global
music.
Too. Yeah.
And global.
You can search by genre, geography, artist, label, and really folk songs from all over the world.
And I would encourage you, just for your own enrichment, to go to the Smithsonian Folkways Children's Music website and just get lost there and listening.
Wonderful recordings, all kinds of great things.
One of my favorite resources is the American Folk Song Collection. It's at Kodai at Holy Names University. That's a strong Kodai. Kodai is a Hungarian musician from the early 20th century, and he came up with an approach that has been adopted worldwide on how to teach music. And so through folk songs and singing games like we mentioned, and at Holy Names, they have collected and categorized so many songs by origin, by region, by state, and many other things. And you can listen to recordings of what the origin of the song, the source of the actual song, and the singer in the Library of Congress.
Yeah, and it's a really clear icon. The icons are very clear, so you can easily click, and then it takes you immediately to the Library of Congress.
It also shows you the music notation.
Mm-hmm. So we just want to finally give you a quick little shout out again to remind you to sign up for our YouTube channel, because we will be going over these things in a little bit more detail, giving more examples through the week. Please email us if you want us to introduce a song. We're also going to be introducing songs in English, beyond songs in English, like songs in Spanish, songs in Portuguese, in other languages, because we believe that music can serve a very similar function to what we always say about stories. Music can be also mirrors, windows, and sliding doors. Having kids see themselves in the music, having kids learn about other cultures through music, and then having kids realize that a lot of times, though we are different, in many ways we are the same. And so please follow us and help share this resource out.
So please remember that music matters, and if children leave with a song in their head and they leave singing, they're more likely to remember the lessons they've learned. I know from my own experience that the songs from my past are the memories that I keep most ingrained. And it helps me to think of things that I've lived, things that I've learned. Music matters.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, here is our contact information if you want to get a hold of us, and our email and Twitter handles are there for you.
Thank you very much, guys. That was wonderful, and wonderful on so many levels. One, it's an area I don't know that much about. To learn was great. Two, frankly, just to start a morning with some beautiful music is also very helpful. And I think it's what's very interesting about this, and what I take away. I think there are lots of things where we can dismiss the power of something because they're so present, right? Music. Oh, it's just music, and it's over there. We play it, and when you break it down and talk about how you use it, literacy skills, critical thinking skills, how you use it to develop and its place within society, I think that's extraordinarily powerful. So I want to thank you guys for introducing that to me. And if it's all right, I'd like to ask a few questions.
Yes.
I'm wondering, putting this in the context of school libraries for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot about school librarians working with teachers, and we almost always talk at the elementary level about reading enrichment, English language enrichment, and when we move up into middle and into high school, secondary levels, we do a lot of research discussion and information literacy. But one of the things that's screaming here out to me is working with the music teacher or the orchestra teacher or the orchestra section. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we actually wrote an article and a book chapter about this years ago when we were trying to convince people this is an amazing partnership for you. One thing that school librarians and music teachers have in common, whether it be an elementary music teacher, an orchestra teacher, a choir teacher, or a band teacher, is that typically you're the only game in town at that school, right? So librarians, a lot of times school librarians will talk about, oh, I struggle with establishing collaborative relationships with other teachers, or I struggle with talking about library principles with those outside of the school library field. Well, there's another teacher on your campus that struggles with similar things, and that is the music teacher. Mm-hmm. They deal with many of the similar issues that school librarians do: fundraising, advocacy, recruiting, working with parent volunteers, working with budgets, ordering and organizing materials. So you have a lot more in common with that teacher than you realize. The opportunity to collaborate is there from early childhood all the way through high school. There are some great research opportunities. For example, middle school and high school performance groups, generally when they have to put together a program, they also put together something called program notes. And that's a section where the program tells the audience information about each piece of music that is being performed. That is a wonderful research activity that the school librarian can help and collaborate with the classroom teacher to put together, the music teacher put together. Students can research those program notes.
It's wonderful for a music teacher, a music director to be able to come to the librarian and use them as a resource to find extra places they can go to find backup source material, expand upon the music. Musicians usually want they want to send people to find out more information about their music that they're presenting.
I mean, all kinds of cool projects. Having, asking your music teacher to work with the performance groups to come up with, if you have a library, a news program, for example, or a podcast, why not have students create your jingles? And why not host performances in your library to help co-fundraise or co-promote programs that are happening? So it's an unending list. One of the coolest programs I ever saw, collaborative programs I ever saw, was an elementary school performance where they read stories. They collaborated with the art teacher and the music teacher. So they had these live storybooks, like performances of the stories. The art students developed the background and created the artwork for the story that was projected onto the screen. And then the music students provided all of the background, the music, the introduction, sound effects, and it was kind of like a book concert is what they called it. And it was just amazing. So, yeah, that's an individual right there that shares a lot more with you than you could even imagine.
Well, and I'm also thinking in the public library setting, youth librarians, but larger. I worked several years ago with the Philadelphia Free Library to imagine what public library support of the community musicians would look like. And it started with, okay, what we'll do is we'll be a matchmaking service to help people find bands. And when we actually did something radical like talk to musicians, they looked at us and said, no, those are called bars. They do fine. But particularly in downtown in the central corridor of Philadelphia, they say what we don't have have any place for world music. We don't have any place for what we would call classical music. And the number one thing that we need is a place to perform it. What they wanted the public library to look like for musicians was creating pianos on the stage. That they said, we are perfectly willing to let you record and podcast it out and share it. We want to bring communities in. We want to engage and discuss it. And it really was this idea of creating, once again, music, treating music as a literacy and a population just like we treat the written word. And I'm thinking a lot of public libraries do things with museum cards where you can go and you can in essence check out a card to go to the local museums and such. But wouldn't it be so much better to go in and organize a public library trip to the concert and then afterwards talk to the musicians and break it down? I see lots of opportunities there.
There's a great program that some of the public libraries in Arkansas have done where they'll bring in, it's a couple, husband and wife, and they're children's musicians. They do these really great recordings of original songs. They come in and they spend a couple of weeks at the library as a residency, and they work with kids every single day and to work on their writing skills, but also composing original songs. And then at the end of that 2-week time, they put together this program. And so it's just, again, a wonderful example of these collaborative activities where you're developing that literacy alongside, almost kind of like in a secret, informal way, like when you put broccoli in brownies.
Oh, don't do that. And librarians, school librarians, public librarians, youth librarians, academic librarians, they don't need to be musicians to do these kinds of activities.
Right. I don't feel ashamed at all to, like they say, phone a friend and or rely on somebody that is a great singer or a great musician. Invite artists into your space, and everybody has talent in their scope, and they can bring that in to perform the music. Also, people, there's just joy in even the worst singer sharing a song.
Yeah. It really is true that kids don't expect you to be Celine Dion. They don't, and in fact, that's really not the best way. It's not, you are not the center of the show, right? It's about you inviting kids to come in and sing with you. That Smithsonian resource that we shared and some of those other resources that we shared have wonderful, high quality recordings. So does the Library of Congress. And you can access those high quality recordings and do many of these same activities that we were talking about and sing along with those if you don't feel comfortable singing yourself.
I would also like to say the authentic recordings from the Library of Congress and Smithsonian and other authentic resources are really poor vocal examples.
Yeah, they're like
those are the most authentic, worldly roots, kind of from the heart, from the soul music, and that's what people really hold on to and love.
Yeah, that's what they respond to. That's what makes a difference to them.
All right, so I have to end by, as I do with all things, making it about me. But the one thing, because music has been important in my life, because like I always, Spotify to me was a gift from God, because now I have a soundtrack to my life, right? I can always, however I'm feeling. But my wife scorns just about every day my high school English teacher, because my high school English teacher, the way she introduced poetry was through music. She said songs are poems, and take it what you want. And then we spent an entire semester taking our favorite songs, breaking them down, analyzing them, pulling them apart, seeing what they were really about. And to the point now where I can't listen to a song without listening to the lyrics. And so 9 times out of 10, she will be singing along happily, and I'll just say, you know what this song is about, right? And she's just like, I don't want to know. Go away. It's like, that's great. Did you know this is the most misogynistic song you've ever heard? No, it has a good beat. Leave me alone. But to me, it's just that indication that we are surrounded by music all the time. It has power to us. It allows us to introduce us into English, and it allows us to break us into, I love the beginning talking about phonemes and the idea of how deep you want to go into this, to the mathematics of representing rhythms and all these kinds of things. And I just want to say thank you to you both very, very much for introducing us to this. It's an important topic, and it's one that I hope, once again, people who dismiss music as background, or dismiss it, respect it, but dismiss their role in it because they say, oh, I can't sing, or I can't carry a tune. That's not the point. And I love, that's the point I'm going to take away, which is it's not about your performance. It's about their learning. And I think that's a fantastic message. Thank you all very, very, very much, including the dog and including your son for walking the dog. And we really appreciate this. And this is another piece of evidence of why I love my job, is I get to work with such brilliant people. So
thanks for having us, and we hope we convinced y'all that childhood and music are a match made in heaven.